Galactic Council's ultimatum fails as Terran Empire responds. The Galactic Council's chamber pulsed with tension. Rows of alien diplomats, warlords, and high-ranking officials sat rigidly in their designated seats, their gazes locked onto the central tribunal. The air crackled with expectation, thick with the unspoken reality that this meeting would determine the fate of an empire. At the center, beneath the towering banners of the Galactic Council, Supreme Arbiter Zelverek lifted his ornate staff and struck the polished stone floor. A deep, resonant chime rang through the chamber, demanding absolute silence. He exhaled sharply before speaking. The council has deliberated. Our patience has run thin. His black eyes, cold as the void, swept across the gathered emissaries. The Terran Empire has been given countless opportunities to fall in line with the interstellar order. Their refusal to submit is unacceptable. A murmur spread through the chamber. The Terrans had defied Galactic Council mandates before, but outright defiance? That was unheard of. Supreme Arbiter Zelverek straightened. This is our final ultimatum. His voice echoed. Humanity must disband its fleets, dissolve its military-industrial complex, and accept Galactic Council oversight. His grip on the staff tightened. Failure to comply will result in immediate and total sanctioning, economically, diplomatically, and militarily. At the far end of the chamber, the lone human representative, Fleet Marshal Adrian Voss, remained impassive. Dressed in the dark blue uniform of the Terran Empire's High Command, she exuded a quiet authority that sent ripples of unease through the gathered alien delegates. She did not stand. She did not flinch. She merely lifted an eyebrow, as if she had just heard a particularly dull piece of news. Supreme Arbiter Zelverek's tone sharpened. Marshal Voss, does the Terran Empire acknowledge and accept the terms laid before you? The silence stretched. Then, finally, the human stood. Her movements were deliberate, controlled, like a predator assessing prey. With a single step forward, she commanded the attention of every being in the chamber. Let me see if I understand this correctly, she said, her voice even but laced with steel. You demand that we dissolve our defenses, cripple our industry, and place our future in the hands of a foreign power? Zelverek's mandibles clicked. It is the will of the Council. Voss tilted her head. The will of the Council. She let the words hang for a moment before chuckling softly, shaking her head. Tell me, Arbiter, how many Terran worlds have you set foot on? The Supreme Arbiter frowned. Irrelevant. On the contrary, she countered. It is the most relevant question in this entire farce. Zelverek's black eyes narrowed. I will not be mocked. I wouldn't dream of it. She folded her hands behind her back. You see, humanity has heard this threat before. From the Vrake Dominion, from the Tsithra war clans, from the Zalthari swarm. Every single one thought they could dictate terms to us. Every single one believed they could force humanity into submission. Her voice did not rise. It did not need to. We do not yield. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Some alien delegates shifted uncomfortably in their seats. Others stared, unblinking, as if witnessing something profoundly unsettling. Zelverek's expression darkened. Then you are condemning your people to ruin. Voss smirked. No, Arbiter. We are warning you. She reached into the folds of her uniform and pulled out a small data slate. With a casual flick of her wrist, she activated it. A holographic projection materialized above the chamber, and gasps rippled through the assembly. The image displayed a massive Terran fleet, hundreds of warships in tight formation. Each vessel bristled with advanced weaponry, their hulls marked with the insignia of the Imperial Navy. Battlecruisers, dreadnoughts, and carrier groups stretched across the void, their sheer number dwarfing even the most powerful fleets assembled in Council history. The Terran Empire does not seek war, Voss said. But we are prepared for it. Zelverek's jaw tightened. You would threaten the Council? I am stating facts. Voss gestured to the hologram. These are not ships that await your permission. They are not fleets that require your approval. They are already mobilized. The chamber erupted in chaos. Some delegates shouted in outrage. Others whispered urgently to their aides. The few military minds present, seasoned admirals, hardened warlords, remained silent, their eyes locked on the terrifying efficiency of the Terran fleet. Supreme Arbiter Zelverek's mandibles clenched. This is madness. The Council controls the flow of trade. We control the hyperlanes. If you resist, you will be cut off from the stars. Voss exhaled softly, almost pitying. You assume we need your hyperlanes. Zelverek hesitated. What? Voss tapped the data slate again. The hologram shifted. Now it displayed something far worse. A Terran slipstream gateway. A colossal ring of dark metal, humming with energy, its core pulsing with a contained singularity. It was Terran-made. And it was operational. The gasps turned to stunned silence. You've built your own?" one of the delegates whispered. Voss nodded. "The Terran Empire no longer relies on your hyperlanes. We no longer require your approval to move across the stars." She let that sink in. The Council's economic sanctions? Meaningless. Trade restrictions? Irrelevant. Military threats. She let out a short, cold laugh. A joke. Zelverek's expression flickered, just for an instant, with something dangerously close to fear. Voss took a step closer. "You call this an ultimatum?" "No, Supreme Arbiter." She leaned in. "This is your last chance." Silence. Then, a single chime echoed through the chamber. One of the council members, a four-armed diplomat of the Xyrath Concord, slowly rose from his seat. His voice was measured but heavy. "Perhaps we should reconsider our approach." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the ranks. Zelverek slammed his staff against the floor. "This meeting is adjourned." His voice was sharp, but everyone could hear the edge of uncertainty beneath it. Voss turned on her heel, striding out of the chamber. Her work here was done. As she passed the towering entryway, she activated her personal comlink. "Admiral, prepare the fleet," she murmured. "The Council is about to make a very important decision." Pause. Then. "Understood, Fleet Marshal." The Terran Empire was ready. Fleet Marshal Adrian Voss strode through the towering halls of the Galactic Council complex, her expression unreadable, her pace steady. Every step echoed through the polished obsidian corridors, the weight of history pressing down on the moment. Behind her, her escort of Terran Imperial Guards moved in silent formation, hulking figures clad in dark, combat-ready armor. Their presence was a statement. The Terran Empire did not send diplomats alone. Her comlink crackled to life. "Fleet standing by," came Admiral Rain's voice. "We're monitoring council chatter. They're in disarray." Voss allowed herself a small smirk. Good. The council had expected fear. They had expected submission. Instead, they now faced an empire that had outgrown them. She glanced at the towering doors ahead, the council's inner strategy chamber. Two six-armed Threxian guards stood watch, their obsidian armor gleaming under the artificial lighting. Their mandibles clicked in agitation, but they did not bar her way. They knew better. With a smooth motion, the doors hissed open, revealing the chamber beyond. Inside, the council's high-ranking officials and military advisors were already arguing. "Can't be allowed to continue this level of militarization," spat an Erdani trade baron, his bioluminescent tendrils pulsing with agitation. "Their industry is independent. Their war machine is self-sustaining. Do you not understand what this means?" "They will tip the balance," growled a Vrake warlord, his crimson battle scars shifting as he clenched his jaw. "If they cannot be brought to heel, then we must break them." Supreme Arbiter Zelverek stood at the head of the chamber, his face locked in a scowl. "Enough." The room fell into tense silence as Voss stepped inside. "You were discussing us," she said smoothly. "I'd hate to miss the part where you pretend to hold power over us." The Xyrath Concord diplomat, one of the few rational minds present, gestured for her to take a seat. "Fleet Marshal Voss," he said carefully, "the Council must reassess its position. Tensions are high and conflict would be costly." "Costly?" Voss arched an eyebrow. "Tell me, how many ships did you lose in the last war against the Zither swarm?" A flicker of discomfort passed through the room. The Council had barely held the swarm back. Humanity had crushed them. Voss let the silence linger before continuing, her voice like a blade. "Your fleets are scattered, your soldiers untested. Your logistics? Dependent on fragile hyperlane routes that we no longer require." She tilted her head. "Do you really believe you can afford a war with us?" Zelverek's mandibles twitched. "Do you truly believe the Council's combined forces cannot match your own?" Voss smiled. "You could try." She placed a data slate on the table, tapping its surface. A hologram flickered to life. Terran shock divisions. Orbital rail cannon platforms. Planetary siege mech standing 300 meters tall. And most disturbingly, a fleet movement report. The Council's security feeds had been compromised. Humanity knew exactly where every major Galactic Council fleet was positioned. A suffocating silence filled the room. "This is an impossibility," whispered one of the admirals. Voss leaned forward, her voice quiet but firm. "This is reality." Zelverek's claws dug into the table. You would declare war then? Voss exhaled through her nose. The Terran Empire does not seek war. She picked up the data slate and deactivated the hologram. But make no mistake, if you force our hand we will end it. The tension in the room was palpable. The power dynamic had shifted and they all knew it. Then a new voice cut through the silence. We should listen. All eyes turned toward the Xyrath Concord diplomat. He folded his lower set of arms, his upper ones gesturing in measured thought. The Terran Empire has expanded beyond the reach of conventional control. Their technology has surpassed expectation, their strategic depth is undeniable. His dark eyes met Voss's. They are not an enemy we can afford. Murmurs spread through the chamber. For the first time, fear glimmered in the Supreme Arbiter's gaze. Voss watched it unfold. The cracks in the council had begun to form. And humanity? Humanity was ready. A single moment of silence stretched through the chamber, thick, suffocating, alive with unspoken truths. Voss could feel it. The shift. The moment where the council's members realized that their power, their fragile, illusionary power, was slipping from their grasp. For centuries they had dictated the fate of civilizations, enforcing their will upon weaker species, ensuring humanity remained a manageable anomaly within their grand design. But humanity was no longer manageable. The Supreme Arbiter Zelverek exhaled sharply, mandibles clicking in frustration. And if we were to grant the Terran Empire formal recognition of its sovereignty? If we were to withdraw certain restrictions? A calculated move. A stall for time. Voss leaned back in her chair, amused. That depends. Are you offering recognition? Or are you trying to convince us to stand still while you find a bigger stick? The Vrake warlord snarled. Your insolence is insufferable. No empire in history has ever defied the council without consequence. You are overconfident. Voss tilted her head. Funny. That's what the swarm said before we eradicated them. The room tensed. She let the weight of that truth settle over them. Let's be clear, Voss continued, standing from her seat, looming over the gathered representatives. You're not here because you still believe you can control us. You're here because for the first time you're afraid. The Xyrath diplomat's upper arms twitched, a subtle, involuntary tell. Voss took a slow step forward. And you should be. Another step. You see, you believe this is still a game. That we're just another faction to be placated, coerced, or forced into submission. Another step. She was nearly face to face with the Supreme Arbiter now. But this is not a negotiation. Pause. Then she placed a single data slate on the table. This, she said, is our counteroffer. The hologram flickered to life. Not threats. Not demands. Numbers. Economic projections. Military assessments. Factional divisions within the council. A slow, methodical unraveling of their authority. They were bleeding power. And the Terran Empire was the knife. Zelverek's mandibles clicked. You expect us to simply step aside? No, Voss admitted. I expect you to implode. Her words sent a ripple through the room. Because they all knew. The cracks in the council's foundation were no longer theoretical. They were gaping wounds. Already, independent factions were reconsidering their allegiance. Xyrath had seen the writing on the wall. The Threxian fleets had pulled back their borders. Several high-value trading species had begun discreet negotiations with Terran diplomats. Humanity hadn't needed to fight for dominance. The council had been rotting from the inside. All humanity had to do was give it a push. The silence in the chamber was deafening. Then, a klaxon blared. Red warning lights flared to life. The council's internal security systems locked down. A voice rang through the chamber. Emergency Priority Alpha. Unauthorized fleet movement detected. Outer defense grid compromised. Zelverek's eyes widened. What is? Voss exhaled. And there it is. She tapped her earpiece. Rains? The Admiral's voice came through, calm and composed. They forced our hand, Marshal. The blockade has collapsed. We're in position. On the hologram before them, a new projection appeared. Terran warships. Inside Council space. Unstoppable. And the Council? They weren't just outmatched. They were already beaten. Voss folded her arms. Shall we continue our discussion? A heavy silence consumed the chamber as the hologram of the Terran fleet dominated the room. Massive capital ships loomed over Council-controlled worlds, their sleek, predatory forms unmistakable against the void. Every Council member present had just witnessed the unthinkable. Humanity had moved its warships into the very heart of the Galactic Council's territory, and no one had stopped them. Voss watched their reactions with measured patience. Some species' bioluminescent patterns flashed erratically, an unconscious display of panic. Others sat rigidly in their seats, trying to conceal the uncomfortable truth settling upon them. The Council had already lost. The Supreme Arbiter's mandibles clicked rapidly, a nervous tick Voss had come to recognize as barely contained fury. This is a declaration of war. Voss arched an eyebrow. Is it? The Xyrath ambassador's 4 eyes narrowed. Your ships have bypassed our defenses. They are in restricted Council space. This is a violation of. Your authority means nothing now. The words, spoken so calmly, carried more weight than any shouted threat ever could. A stunned silence followed. Voss stepped forward, hands behind her back, every movement controlled, deliberate. The Terran Empire has tolerated your threats. We've endured your blockades, your sanctions, your attempts to stifle us. We have played the game by your rules. She leaned forward slightly. But let me be very, very clear. Her gaze swept across the gathered leaders, each one shifting uncomfortably beneath her stare. The game is over. A cold dread settled over the chamber. The Supreme Arbiter's breathing became ragged, his posture rigid with rage. Human arrogance will be your downfall. No, Voss said. It's what has kept us standing. The hologram shifted. New data filled the display. A real-time tactical overview of every major Terran fleet position throughout the galaxy. Not just a show of strength. An ultimatum. Council worlds were now flanked by Terran-controlled sectors. Their critical supply lines, once thought untouchable, were now in jeopardy. Humanity hadn't just arrived. They had surrounded the Council without a single shot being fired. The Xyrath ambassador exhaled sharply, eyes darting toward the Supreme Arbiter. This is impossible. Our fleets should have detected such movement. Voss smirked. You relied too much on your outdated intelligence networks. We've been 5 steps ahead for years. The Vrake warlord slammed a fist against the table, cracking the polished surface. You expect us to simply surrender? Voss turned to him, her expression impassive. No. That would imply you have a choice. The Supreme Arbiter trembled with anger, his claws digging into the armrests of his seat. You think you can dismantle centuries of governance? That we will simply bow to your infestation? For the first time, Voss allowed herself to smile. You misunderstand, she said. We're not here to dismantle the Council. A beat of silence. We're here to replace it. The chamber erupted in an instant. Dozens of voices spoke at once. Some in anger, some in shock, others in barely restrained terror. The very idea was unthinkable. But they knew. The Council was already fractured beyond repair. Their rule had persisted through inertia, through tradition, through the fear of what lay beyond their carefully maintained control. But fear no longer worked on humanity. The Terran Empire had grown while they had stagnated. And now they were being left behind. The Supreme Arbiter rose from his seat, his voice laced with venom. We will not allow this. Voss merely tilted her head. You misunderstand again. It's already happening. A new projection flickered to life. Several high-ranking Council worlds had already begun talks with Terran diplomats. Factions that once supported the Council had defected. Not because of threats. Not because of force. But because humanity offered something better. The Supreme Arbiter looked at the data in horror. No, your influence is dead. Voss let the words sink in. From this moment forward, the Council is finished. Her voice carried an unshakable finality. The Terran Empire will ensure stability. Order. A future. You can either adapt, or you can become irrelevant. The Supreme Arbiter's chest heaved. His mind struggled to find an angle, a counterplay, but there was none. His empire had been checkmated. Finally, his shoulders slumped. The fight in his posture was gone. Defeat was a bitter thing. Voss exhaled softly. She wasn't cruel enough to enjoy this moment. But she would ensure humanity never found itself beneath another's boot again. The chamber remained silent for a long time. Then one by one the representatives stood. Not in opposition. In acceptance. The old order had fallen. And humanity had just forged a new one. Epilogue. The stars stretched endlessly before her. Voss stood at the command deck of the TS Resolute, watching as the former Council territories integrated into the new order. A voice spoke behind her. It's done. Admiral Rain stepped beside her, arms folded, gaze unwavering. The council officially recognized the transition, he continued. Most of their key leaders have adapted. Some still resist, but their support base is gone. It'll take time, but the transition will be smooth. Voss nodded. And those who refuse? Rains exhaled. Some will go into exile. Others will try to resist. But they won't last. The galaxy has already chosen. Voss remained silent for a moment. Then she turned to face him. And the fleet? Rains smirked. Stronger than ever. A new era had begun. And humanity was at its helm. Voss took one last look at the stars. Then she smiled. Let's get to work. Fire the end. Fire. Rocket, did you enjoy this? Let's keep the HFY spirit alive. White heavy checkmark, like, share and comment if you want more. White heavy checkmark, subscribe for the best HFY sci-fi stories. White heavy checkmark, what should we write next? Let us know below. Humanity doesn't just survive. We rise. Rocket fire.